What's up, guys? UFC 309 is wrapped up and in the books, and I wanted to come back and talk about 12 things we learned from UFC 309, coming out of some of the fighters and just overall the event in general. So let's get right into it, starting with Jon Jones will not fight Tom Aspen. Listen, Jon Jones completely destroyed Stipe Miocic at UFC 309 in the main event, as he was expected to do. He looked great, can't lie. He did take Stipe to the third round, which is concerning if he's going to fight Aspinall, because Aspinall would have smoked Stipe in a minute. But Jon Jones gave us, after the fight, he said, if the UFC compensates me, I might give you guys what you want, hyping up the crowd because he didn't want to get booed. But at the post-fight press conference, he reiterated that he does not want to fight Tom Aspinall. He wants to fight Alex Pereira, and that they would have to give him FU money in order for him to fight Tom Aspinall. And yeah, this sounds like the same exact Jon Jones I was talking about Francis Ngannou. He knows the risk that comes with fighting these guys. Fair enough. I'm not going to say he's scared of Aspinall, but he's definitely ducking him for more money because he knows that if he fights Aspinall, there's a very good chance he might lose. At 37 years old, fighting a younger, hungry, fast, one of the best heavyweights we've ever seen, one of the most skilled heavyweights in Tom Aspinall. Tom Aspinall is just different. And then Jon Jones is a smart guy. He knows that, and that's why he's requesting so much money. That's why he prefers a matchup against Alex Pereira, where he knows he can take the fight to the ground and easily end it. Where when you're fighting Tom Aspinall, who's a lean 255, 260 pounds, light on his feet, slick boxing, and just extreme power and good jiu-jitsu, it's not an easy fight for Jon Jones. So he knows that. So of course he's going to price himself out. So I don't think we're ever going to see this fight. I think we're going to see Jones and the UFC negotiate. It's going to fail, and then Jones will probably vacate the heavyweight title, and we might not see him again. So yeah, that's the first thing to come out of UFC 309 for me. Let's get to the next one. Stipe is an old man, and he looked every bit of 42 years old. Listen, Stipe, respect to him, the greatest UFC heavyweight of all time, the most title defenses, but he looked every bit of a guy who hadn't fought in 3 years and hadn't won a fight in 4 years. He looked slow, he looked old, he looked out of his prime. He looked like a man who should have stayed retired. Respect to Stipe. He came back to get the bag, as he should. I like Stipe. One of the most honorable and respectable men in the UFC, a firefighter on top of being a UFC fighter and a family man. So respect to him, a good career. Hope he enjoys his retirement. But yeah, man, he did not look good. He looked lost out there. He looked like he was 20 steps behind Jon Jones the entire fight. And he was, because he's just old and slow. So that's all there really is to say about Stipe. Respect to him. Have a good retirement, brother. Let's move on to the next thing. We got Charles Oliveira is still a dangerous contender at 155. Listen, I don't know if that was the best performance from Charles Oliveira. It was definitely the most well-rounded and smart performance from Charles Oliveira. He did what he was supposed to do. He went out there and he out-wrestled Chandler, who's known to have good wrestling. And Charles Oliveira just went out there every single round and just took him down and beat him up and got him in dominant positions. I'm actually surprised that Oliveira was not able to get the finish against Chandler. He got in on the back and had the body triangle a few times, had him in a couple submission attempts. But man, guy like Chandler is just hard to submit just because he's so short and compact, kind of like a Volkanovski. But how good is Dustin Poirier submitting Michael Chandler? How good is his jiu-jitsu? No, I'm kidding. But listen, Charles Oliveira showed he still got it, even at 35 years old. He's still a contender at 155. It does suck because he's already lost to Arman and Makhachev. He's been finished by Makhachev in a close fight with Arman. But listen, if Arman beats Makhachev in January, I don't think he will, but if he does, I can see Charles Oliveira getting a rematch because of the close fight they had, him and Arman. So, yeah, who knows what's next for Charles? I think he should just wait it out, see what happens between Islam and Arman, and then he can go from there. But, man, he looked good. One of his better performances. He's still dangerous. He's still up there at lightweight, so respect to my boy Charlie Olives. Let's move on to the next thing we got out of UFC 309. Michael Chandler is a dirty fighter. And this isn't the first fight where he's been a dirty fighter. Listen, if you paid attention throughout the fight, this man was grabbing the fence to stop takedowns. He was just grabbing Charles's gloves at some point. And then at one point, he hit Charles in the back of the head with like 10, 15 back of the head shots. Clearly illegal. Keith Peterson, who clearly was on alcohol and cigarettes, did not say anything. He just watched it happen. So there's that. And even Dustin Poirier said whenever he fought Michael Chandler, there's a video of him literally trying to fish hook Dustin Poirier in the fight. So I'm glad he got submitted by Poirier, and I'm glad he lost to Oliveira. This guy's a cheat. He's a dirty fighter. Listen, Michael Chandler comes off as like this patriotic American, but why you cheating in fights, bro? Why you cheating in fights? And why you calling out Conor McGregor like you just won the fight against Oliveira? Dude, you waited out for Conor McGregor for 2 years. It's probably good for you. Stop being a dirty fighter. Stop being a cheat. Fight clean. And he still lost. That's the thing. This man's fighting like a dirty fighter and still losing the fight. It's pretty sad, but it is what it is. It happened. I'm glad Charles got the win over him. Michael Chandler, he should fight somebody down the rankings. He does not deserve to fight up the rankings anymore. This dude's been ranked squatting on number 6 for like 2 years, not fighting. 2-4 in the UFC now, so what else is there to say? Not a clean fighter. Let's move on. Bo Nickel is not ready for rank competition. Listen, Bo Nickel was hyping himself up after his fight saying, man, I just dominated Paul Craig, who's been doing MMA way longer than me, guys. It's only my 7th professional fight. Listen, the UFC is pushing Bo Nickel hard, and they need to pump the brakes. This guy is not ready for the top competition. He's not ready for a ranked fighter. Paul Craig has some of the worst striking in middleweight history. Like, his striking is just awful. And, yeah, Bo Nickel outstruck Paul Craig, but I wanted to see more out of Bo Nickel. I wanted to see him get a takedown. I wanted to see him try and finish the fight, but he was just too respectful of Paul Craig's jiu-jitsu, which, fair enough. Paul Craig has finished guys like Jamal Hill, like Nikita Krylov, like Ankalaev. Like, he's dangerous on the ground. He has one of the best triangles in the game, but he cannot strike whatsoever. There's no reason why you should not be finishing Paul Craig on the feet, Bo Nickel. So if you're not going to shoot a takedown and showcase your world-class wrestling, at the very least, you should have TKO'd him on the feet. Listen, I know people are giving Bo Nickel a lot of crap. He's only 7-0, but the reason people are giving him a lot of crap, as myself, is because the UFC is trying to push this guy to the top, and he's just not ready. He's too green. He needs more development on his striking, and maybe even his jiu-jitsu. We don't know. We didn't see his ground game, but his striking needs a lot of work. So, yeah, he did win the fight all 3 rounds, but it's Paul Craig on the feet. I mean, my grandma can probably put up a fight. But I think the reason the fans are hating on Bo Nickel these days is because the UFC is pushing him on main event cards. I mean, he was on UFC 300. Now he's on the main card of UFC 308. They need to put this guy on like a Apex main card, or like a headliner of a prelims on the pay-per-view. Stop putting him on the main card. He's going to get a lot of hate if he doesn't completely destroy his opponent every time. And also with the odds. What's up with the odds on his fights? Why is he like negative 1,200, negative 2,000 against everybody he fights? Like, this dude's not like, he's not Khamzat Chimaev. They need to chill out with that. Either way, Bo Nickel, good win, but he did not look amazing like we expected him to. Let's move on. Paul Craig, 13 years into his MMA career, and this man still doesn't know how to throw a punch. Paul Craig might be the worst striker at 185. I think somebody like Marvin Vettori would piece up Paul Craig, and Marvin Vettori's pretty mid on the feet. But Paul Craig, all he has is a body kick and a triangle. Outside of that, the dude is cooked. He's been submitted a couple times, or even one time in UFC, I think by Brendan Allen, showing that outside of off his back and hit dangerous guard with a triangle, he doesn't really have much. Paul Craig is the definition of a one-trick pony. And yeah, man, it's crazy. This guy's been doing MMA since he's 36. So he's been doing MMA since he was 23 years old, and he still doesn't know how to throw a punch properly. Like, this guy has awful striking. Like, dude, go down to Thailand and get some training in there, like Khalil Roundtree did. Develop that striking, Paul Craig. Now, it's probably too late. This dude's 36 years old. He, like I said, he has one of the best triangles in the game, but this guy's striking is awful. So maybe Paul Craig should retire. He's just taking damage at this point. He got brutally KO'd by Kyle Barajo. So yeah, anybody decent is going to beat Paul Craig if they can avoid his ground game. So that's it for Paul Craig. Let's move on. Women's non-title fights should not be on UFC pay-per-view main events. Listen, this was one of the sloppiest fights I've ever seen. Karine Silva versus Viviana Araujo, whatever her name is. This fight was terrible. Definitely worthy of a bathroom break, but I did stay to watch it for whatever reason. Yeah, and the 37-year-old flyweight Viviana Araujo beats the up-and-comer Karine Silva, who's on a 9-fight win streak with almost all finishes. Yeah, they both look terrible, and no way this should be on a UFC pay-per-view main card. Not even an Apex Fight Night main card, dude. We need to reserve the UFC pay-per-view main card for the best fights and title fights. This is not the best fights. Why was this on the main card? Jim Miller should have been on the main card, not this fight. So yeah, that's really all I have to say about this fight. Let's move on to the next thing. We got Mauricio Ruffy has a questionable gas tank. This guy's literally living up to his name of being another version of Conor McGregor. He even got the gas tank to go with it. Listen, some of the flashiest striking in that division I think this is, well, I'm not sure what division this is. They fight at 155. Not 100% sure. Call me a casual. But Mauricio Ruffy, he did look good against James Lontop, and it does need to be mentioned that James Lontop came in overweight, and he was much bigger than Ruffy in there. So fighting the bigger guy could have definitely took some out of the tank. But man, this fight wasn't the most high pace fight in the world, and Mauricio Ruffy looks like he slowed down a lot in that third round, and I think James Lontop won that third round. So Mauricio Ruffy definitely needs to work on that cardio a little bit. But man, if he can get his cardio in line, this guy's going to be one of the most dangerous strikers in the division. But we need to see his grappling as well. What happens if you get him to the ground? Either way, he does have a little bit of a questionable gas tank, but good performance by him. He looked amazing still, and he looked really good in round 1 and most of round 2. But in round 3, he faded a bit, and Lontop took advantage of that. So, yep, let's move on to the next thing that came out of UFC 309. We're talking Jonathan Martinez with some of the lowest fight IQ. This guy has low fight IQ. Like, I don't know what other way to put it. In the third round, Jonathan Martinez absolutely brutalizing Marcus McGee's legs to where Marcus McGee is struggling to stand. Like, he's literally hobbling on one leg. And what does Jonathan Martinez do? He clinches him up against the fence for 2 minutes and just does nothing. Wastes 2 minutes of the fight in the third round whenever he clearly could have and likely get a finish if he just spammed those leg kicks. I know it's easier said than done, but he didn't even try. He just clinched Marcus McGee up against the fence and then just gave up. Why not throw those leg kicks that were doing so much damage? This guy has some of the most devastating leg kicks in the lower weight classes. TKOing guys on the feet like Cub Swanson. TKOing guys on the feet like Adrian Yanez with leg kicks. But he's doing the same thing to Marcus McGee, and he decides to clinch and throw away the fight. I don't understand it. This made no sense. I don't know why his coaches weren't screaming at him to let go of the clinch and to throw more leg kicks. He threw away the fight. He could have potentially TKO'd Marcus McGee, but he didn't. It is what it is. Jonathan Martinez, solid fighter, but with fight IQ like that, I don't see him beating too many more top guys. I mean, I don't know what else to say. He's on a 2-fight losing streak now. Hopefully he can get a win in his next fight. Let's move on. Speaking of him, Marcus McGee is a problem at bantamweight. Listen, this guy, he has some of the best striking at bantamweight, some of the cleanest boxing. He's dangerous. He's accurate. And he has good cardio. The only issue is, as you can see, if you can throw leg kicks like Jonathan Martinez, you can bust up them legs. I know Jonathan Martinez has different leg kicks hit different, but man, you take any good leg kicker and bust up Marcus McGee's legs, he might be in trouble. Marcus McGee, some of the cleanest striking at bantamweight, he might be a problem. The only issue with Marcus McGee, he came into MMA late. He's 34 years old, so this guy needs to be active. I want to see him fighting every 2 to 3 months. Don't waste time, bro. Your prime's only going to last a few years, so let's get Marcus McGee back in there ASAP. Maybe you put him up against like a Mario Bautista, since Bautista doesn't deserve anybody up the rankings with that performance against Aldo. So Marcus McGee versus Bautista next. But he looked really good. Marcus McGee impressed me. Really good prospect at bantamweight. Let's move on to the next thing. Jim Miller, still dangerous at 41 years of age. Listen, Jim Miller's the only fighter in UFC history to fight at UFC 100, 200, and 300. What a legend Jim Miller is. The most fights in UFC history at 45, the most wins with 27. I mean, this guy's still finishing guys at 41 years old. Jim Miller's just incredible. I even heard like a stat during the broadcast that Jim Miller's never had a major surgery, which is crazy because he's been fighting for so long. I think he's been in the UFC since 2008. So, man, Jim Miller is one of the craftiest veterans ever. Damon Jackson was cooked in that fight. Damon Jackson just looked like he didn't want to be there. And Jim Miller looked switched on, and Damon Jackson shot a sloppy takedown, and Jim Miller cinched up a arm and guillotine and finished the fight. So that's all there is to really say about that. Jim Miller, respect. Just one of the most legendary fighters ever. I love Jim Miller. One of my favorite fighters to watch. He always goes for the finish, and he mentioned that in his post-fight interview that he's not even in top 10 for decisions at lightweight. The guy goes for finishes, and you got to respect it. Even at 41, he's doing it. So, yeah, love Jim Miller out here. Let's move on to another thing. Basel Hafez was overrated due to how he looked in the JDM fight. Listen, if you don't know, Basel Hafez made his UFC debut on short notice to fight Jack Della Maddalena, and he put up a hell of a fight. He pushed Jack Della Maddalena to the brink, and Jack Della Maddalena is one of the best welterweights in the world right now, some of the best boxing, and Basel Hafez, he pushed the pace on Jack Della Maddalena and did really good in that fight. Lost the fight, but he did really good. And, yeah, people were high on this guy because he looked like a juggernaut in that fight. He looked like he had unlimited cardio. But for whatever reason, maybe not unlimited cardio, but for whatever reason now, the guy's not looking too good. He went to a decision with Mickey Gall, which, no, you should not be going to a decision with Mickey Gall in 2024. Mickey Gall is one of the worst fighters in the UFC in the welterweight division. He's terrible. He has a 7-7 record now. And this guy, Basso Hafez, couldn't finish Mickey Gall, which should have been a telltale sign that he probably was going to lose this fight to Oban Elliott. I did pick him to beat Oban Elliott, but respect to Oban Elliott, he busted up Basso Hafez, and yeah, maybe Basso Hafez isn't overrated and Oban Elliott's just that damn good. No. Basso Hafez was definitely overrated due to how he looked in the JDM fight. That's all there is to say. He's 1-2 in the UFC now. So hopefully the UFC doesn't cut him. Give him one more chance. But yeah, he didn't look great in this fight, and he got KO'd. So, yeah. Let's move on to the last thing on this list. No, that was it. So, yeah, that was it for this list, guys. That is 12 things that I learned from UFC 309. I appreciate you guys watching. Let me know what you think in the comments. What did you guys learn from UFC 309? What did you get out of it? It was a solid card overall. I'll probably give it like a 6 out of 10. Not the best. The name value was kind of garbage on the card. Karine Silva versus Viviane Araujo on the main card was kind of a joke. And Bo Nickal should not be on the main card. So I give it a 6 out of 10. Jones looked amazing. We need to see Jones Aspen on next. And yeah, guys, that's it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and I'm out. Peace.